Do you need a coach before entering your first pageant? This might be a bit of a hot take, but as a pageant coach, I'm going to tell you, no, absolutely you don't need one. Obviously you can get one. I'm not going to stand here and say absolutely you should not get one, and if you get one, it's a bad thing. But my overall opinion on getting coaching before you've ever entered your first pageant, my fear is that, here's my theory. It's your first time going into a pageant. You might as well just go have some fun, see how it goes. And then if you enjoy yourself, sure. And you decide that you're going to commit to winning a certain title or doing the best you can, then sure, getting some good professional advice, good and professional don't necessarily mean the same thing. Getting some good professional advice certainly can help. My issue is some of us tend to overthink things, don't we? And so before doing anything, and I was told this is part of maybe a sign of ADHD brain, I don't know. But some of us, even when we're doing the simplest of things, the simplest of tasks, we feel like we need to research everything. We need to find the best way of doing something but before we actually do it. So, when I first started cooking, something that I do enjoy, I don't get to do it as often as I'd like. I was going through my Gordon Ramsay phase. And for those of you who don't know, although I'd be surprised if you didn't know, Gordon Ramsay is a 3-star Michelin chef, which is one of the rarest awards in the world. And he has a lot of Michelin stars, and so the guy knows how to cook. And he had a certain way of making scrambled eggs, and so I thought, okay, if I'm going to make scrambled eggs, I have to do it his way. Rather than probably what most other people would do would just be, well, I'll get eggs, I'll throw them in the frying pan, I'll jiggle them around a bit and see what happens. Nothing wrong with that, because then your first attempt at least has, let's say, a higher success or a higher chance of succeeding. The problem comes when it's the paralysis by analysis, right? It's when you start looking into something as a placebo for actually or as a replacement for actually doing it. You need to be very careful when you're the sort of person who's prone to overthinking, that you don't just keep doing your research. You don't look for the perfect system to enter. Bear in mind, I do suggest that you look for a system that you relate to. But if you spend all your time looking for the perfect way to walk, the perfect gown, the perfect interview answer, the perfect look, the perfect hair, etc., the perfect pageant that fits everything, you look at their scoring system and you go, yep, that's, if I was to start a pageant, that's how I would do it. A year can pass, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and you can look back and go, well, have I actually entered a pageant? No. And I think you're missing out. That's my take on it. I think you will learn more from doing the pageant than you will from thinking about the pageant. It's a bit different, as I said, after you've done your first one, because then you have much more an accurate lay of the land. But let me give you an analogy, and it's not 100% accurate, but it might be instructive, which is from my days as a tennis coach. And very often I would have well-meaning, I taught kids, it was a school environment, an all-girls school environment, although I did coach some boys. Very often I would have well-meaning parents, well-intending parents, they bring their kids, well, they want me to start coaching their kids, and the kid has never played tennis before, right? So this is a brand new endeavor for them. And the parent would ask me how much for private coaching. And most coaches probably would answer with $50 an hour, $100 an hour, $200, whatever it is, and not give a second thought to it because they want to get the money, which is fair enough. I always had a concern though, when you're bringing someone to me who's never played the game and you want to start with a private coach, not just for one session, but you want weekly ongoing sessions. What I found was, and bear in mind again, this is tennis, this is not pageantry. What I found was that student then became reliant on me to be their only source of information about the game. By that I meant their parents never felt the need to actually just take little Timmy or little Jane and take them to a tennis court and have a hit with them themselves. Or organize like a play date with some friends from school and have them go and play some tennis together. Or even do some group lessons versus private lessons, where again, you don't just have the coach as your only source of information. You get the social side of it and you get to play with other competitors or would-be competitors, right? And I never found that those types of people, the people who only got the private lessons and never practiced outside of it, I never felt they made the most progress. And I never honestly felt that they stayed with the game of tennis. They might stay as a student of me because they enjoy having me as their coach, but that was a bit different. And as a tennis coach, you don't really want them to become reliant on you. I think you want them to actually become lifelong disciples of the game of tennis, because one of the reasons I loved tennis was that you could play it as a game for life. And obviously health is a huge issue, and being able to have a sport that you can play for the rest of your life, that's a big plus. That not every sport, like if you're doing gymnastics, for example, it's highly unlikely you're going to be doing that sport for the rest of your life. It has a certain use by date or time frame. And the same, I think, applies to pageantry. I have a lot, or in fact might be the bulk of my clients who come to me for the first time. And if they're beginner clients, it's that age-old adage of, you know what you know what you don't know, but then there's also what you don't know. It's like when you don't know what questions to ask. And I get a lot of that. A lot of my first-time clients haven't done a pageant, and they will say something along the lines of, well, I saw an interview that you did. I like what you said. I'm going into pageants and I just don't really know like what questions I should be asking or what I should be looking for, or, how to put a plan together to prepare. And, that's all well and good. That's a bit different because you're coming to me as, give you a guiding hand, pointing you in the right direction. Let's put it that way. But no one, I think, in the right mind would come to me ongoing for pageant coaching sessions and never do a pageant. Like, it doesn't make any sense, does it? And so I think if you do your pageant first, and I think if you have a session with a coach as a one-off to get some guidance as to go into the right direction, I think that's great. I think that can be useful. But I think a lot of people will use coaching or use that research phase, as I said, like looking for the perfect gown or looking for the perfect interview answer, as an excuse to just not dive straight in. And if you are the type of person who tends to overthink things, you're the sort of person who can just sit maybe at your work desk and outwardly nothing happens. But at the end of the day, you're exhausted because you've just been overthinking and overanalyzing. I think there's something to be said about the value of just jumping straight in. And what I would say is, it's about committing yourself in a way that you can't back out of. So maybe, to combine the best of both worlds so that you actually do enter, right? You actually are going to enter a pageant, but that you don't go in completely blindsided. What I might recommend is that you pick a pageant, and this is not as hard as it sounds, because a lot of pageant is, if you probably go to their website, you go to their social media, right? And a lot of it is, well, can you believe it? Sometimes not. So it's a bit hit and miss. But try and pick the pageant that fits best for you, but then enter it. If that's an email you need to send or you need to fill out a form, just enter it. And after you've entered it and after you've committed to it, then you can maybe look for coaching. That might be the best. That might be the way of combining the best of both worlds, because once you've entered it, now you're committed. And so the coaching actually has more of a chance of being relevant to your situation. So if you're thinking about entering a pageant, and it's 2025 when I'm recording this, go in. If it's your first one, I think go in obviously have a mindset of what do I want to get out of this. But there is something to be said about just going in, enjoy it, don't overthink it. And then if you depending on your experience, you go, okay, I think this industry, this hobby is for me. Then seeking coaching will be more valuable to you because you'll have more of an idea of what questions to ask. You'll have more of an idea of what you don't know or what you didn't do so well at. So maybe you did really well on stage, but you didn't do so well on interview, or vice versa. And I think that would be, for me, the better way of structuring a pageant career. I don't want you to get too bogged down at the beginning or worrying about things that really don't matter. I don't want you to be spending a lot of money on a gown or spending hundreds of hours on social media or on advocacy or website or interview training until you actually work out, is this something that I want to be doing ongoing? And it's, as I said, I gave you the analogy with tennis coaching. I would never advise someone to spend money on getting the most expensive racket, the most expensive tennis shoes, getting all the gear. Actually, Gordon Ramsay had a saying, all the gear, no idea, right? And you see that very often in tennis. And, no shame, because some of you probably in particular, more interested in the fashion side of things than the actual, if you play tennis, more interested in the fashion side of things than the actual tennis, because tennis fashion is a big deal. It's very expensive as well. But my point is, I would never say, okay, before you come, here's the best way for you to start tennis. Hire me as your private coach. You never play outside of that. You only ever play with me. You need to get the most expensive racket. You need to get 1,000 tennis balls. You need to get the most expensive sneakers. You need to do this. And you haven't even hit a ball yet. If you go into the court, get a friend or your parent, take your kid out with a tennis ball, with some tennis balls, with tennis rackets, have a hit and introduce them to the sport, or introduce yourself to the sport or the hobby or whatever it is we're talking about, and see if you enjoy it. Because sometimes you just don't know, right? Sometimes we fall in love with people or with hobbies, and sometimes we don't exactly know why. And vice versa, sometimes there are things that really we think, oh, this should suit us. Like this person would be a fantastic match for us. Or this hobby would be something I can really get into. And for whatever reason, you give it a go and the magic isn't quite there. That's not something that can be coached or taught, right? You can't really be coached to how to love something that you don't really love. And so there's something to be said about finding your match in terms of people or hobbies. And so I think going into the pageant, getting a lay of the land, what are the sort of people going to pageants? What are they like? Are they the sort of people that I'd like to surround myself with? And obviously that's your fellow contestants, the directors, the coaches, the whole nine yards. Get a feel for what pageant day or pageant week is like. Some of you probably watching this, a lot of you will love it because you get to socialize, you get to dress up, you get to look at a lot of, you get to dress up in sparkly things, you get to have your hair and makeup done, although you probably have to pay for it. You get photos, it's a bit of a glam thing. And so it makes sense that a lot of you love it. But some of you won't. Some of you won't love, let's be honest, won't love being surrounded by all women at every hour of every day. Some of you aren't cut out for social media. And in the way that the pageant industry is at the moment, that's a big thing. And these are all the little things that really matter, right? All these little things that you're not really ever going to find out from a coaching session, no matter how good the coach is, because there's a plethora of little things that go into the experience. So actually having that experience of pageant day or pageant week, that'll be a really good experience or test to see, is this something that I can see myself being a part of for a few years at least, or for a career, a pageant career? And look, you may not stick with the one pageant system for your career. In fact, if that was your first pageant and you go, well, the system was okay, but I didn't really like it, I think I might try this other system, that's fine. But no matter how different the systems are, they are still pageants. And so they still have certain things in common. They will still, by and large, have an on-stage component, an off-stage component. They will have some component where you're walking in a gown. They will have some component where you're doing an interview, etc., etc., etc. And it's really like saying, how would you describe a sunset to a blind person, someone who doesn't have the gift of sight? You can't even describe the color red. How do you do it? You need some sort of experience. So if you are considering entering your first pageant, and let's say it's something that you've been thinking about for a while, and you've been going back and forth. It's not just an impulsive, I might enter a pageant, but, it could be. But have you really been going, I see these pageant girls and there seems to be something about them and certain qualities that I would like to add to myself or work on within myself, then I would say, okay, pick a pageant. And when I say pick a pageant and you want to do your research as to find the best pageant for you, we're talking a day's worth of research, right? Maybe a week. We're not talking about a month. All you need to do is go to their social media, go to their website, have a look. Do you think it would be a good match? And look, you could do more research, but what I found from my experience interviewing hundreds of pageant contestants from every major system, I think, under the sun, you will have every individual woman has a very individual experience. So no one can tell you whether is a pageant system good or not? That question doesn't really make any sense, because one person can have an amazing experience, the very next person can have a horrific experience. And so, yes, there are some systems that on the whole are run better and are run with more transparency or honesty. Certainly the scoring systems differ. But again, it's like that dating analogy or finding that magic, that chemistry analogy. Sometimes it's a good fit, sometimes it's not. But at the very least, if you enter, you can get more of an idea of A, is this something that I want to keep doing? And B, if I then do decide to take on coaching, you have better questions to ask because you have more of an idea of what it is that you didn't know. And so then you can ask your coach that, if they're a good coach and they actually want you to say what you need help with, because not every coach does that. But then that can help your coach be of more help to you. Because and again, use a tennis analogy just to wrap this up, I so often had students come on court, and the very first thing I would begin a coaching session with a question. What do you want to do today? What do you want to work on today? And do you know how many students came onto my court saying, I don't know, or everything, which really, when you think about it, those answers mean exactly the same thing. It really means I don't care enough about my own game or my own progress to actually have any self-awareness as to what it is I need to work on. And I hated that answer so much that I instituted this policy. If you ever answered my question of what do you want to work on today with I don't know or everything, then you would run a lap of the tennis court. Then when you came back, I would ask you the same question. And if you answered again with I don't know or everything, I would make you run again. I would have some stubborn students who thought they just didn't want to come up with a better answer, so they would just keep answering I don't know. So they spent the whole lesson running around because I can be as stubborn as you can. But I think you get my point. Enter the pageant, get the lay of the land, then you will have some better questions to ask. You'll have more of an idea of what it is you didn't know. Then when you engage a coach, not only can that coach be more useful to you because you have relevant questions to ask them, but you actually, let's be honest, you have a better chance of taking on a quality coach because you sort of know now from your pageant experience, okay, I think that person is talking the talk, right? They're actually someone and walking the walk, someone who has a track record of experience, and you have certain things that you can judge them against to help you take on a good coach. So do you need to take on a coach before you enter your first pageant? Absolutely not. It's like I would say with tennis, go and have a hit first. See if you enjoy it. Go and do a pageant first. See if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, why would you take on a coach? Why would you spend the money? You spend the money on something else. Spend it on a holiday. Spend it on a purse, a handbag, a pair of shoes. But if you do enjoy it, and then you want to get as far as you possibly can, then obviously taking on quality professional advice can make a big difference. Any questions about this? Let me know.